Hello all. Today we are going to discuss on my real Scrum Master interview experience with Cognizant, also known as CTS. So we're going to discuss both what are the questions they asked me, as well as like what answer I gave them, and also the appropriate way. So before we start into this video, I would like to share few points as a disclaimer. So this interview Q&A discussion, whatever we are having here, is based upon my own experience, or sometimes maybe from my trained associates experience only, and sometimes for the same company it may be little different for different projects. What I'm coming to tell is, for example, in CTS, there may be some projects in which the interview format may be slightly different. Okay, so just I want to give a very good clarity on that. And few answers, whatever we are discussing here, may be based upon my own perspective. And the expectation differs from interviewer to interviewer. Okay. And we will be discussing here also on the appropriate way to answer each question based upon my perspective, and also few extra bonus tips, how you can groom your answer in a better way. That also I'm going to share. Please do watch this video from start to end, and also provide your support for my channel. Let us get started. So my CTS Scrum Master interview duration was for 45 minutes. And this I'm talking about the round 1. Okay. So as usual, it started with general self-intro from myself. And the first question was, what is the team size you have handled earlier? See, this is one of the commonly asked question I will tell. This you should be answering with your personal experience. So as a Scrum Master, you might have handled multiple teams, or a single team you might have handled earlier. So with your own experience, you should be telling the team size here. So this is a simple and straightforward question. Moving to the next. As a Scrum Master, have you resolved any conflict in your team? Explain. See, conflict management is one of the important role of a Scrum Master. So when I answer, because some people may tell, no, my team does not have any conflict. We don't have any conflict. I don't think so that is possible, because any team will be having some conflict, or some amount of friction will be there within the team members. And always first acknowledge that, yes, conflict is a common thing which may happen in a team. And if you're having some conflict, it is understood that always you're moving in the right path. So the way I answered is, I answered, yes, I have good experience with managing conflict within my team. And I explained my own strategy. Okay, how I resolved, how I used to handle conflict, but you can also tell with your own experience. So have a simple example. That's why you should quote a scenario as an example, and then explain very clearly why that conflict happened, how you handle that conflict. So I quoted from my own project. So what conflict I have resolved within my team. So you should be telling from your own project perspective. And for that, I have also shared one video earlier for recording the conflict resolution strategy or the conflict management. I have posted a short video for around 5 minutes. So you can have a reference towards that. But what people tend to miss here is, see, it's not about only resolving the conflict. After that, a Scrum Master should have a tap or a follow-up on whether whatever resolution happened after that means the result of the conflict management, that result of a conflict is getting followed in the upcoming days. That is also one of the Scrum Master's responsibility. For example, consider at the end of a conflict, we are getting a agreement between the development team and the testing team. Then, as a Scrum Master, you should ensure whether the team is following that or not. So I quoted in this way, a very simple example I quoted, and I just chose the best conflict I have ever resolved. Because just a dev and a QA, just I quoted here for your reference. But what I'm telling is from your own project, which is the best conflict you think you have resolved, you should be explaining in that way. And I explained it in a pretty detailed manner. And I didn't get any follow-up question from this question. Okay. So next question is, what is the average velocity of your team? See, this is also one of the questions which you need to explain with your project perspective. So team-specific historical data you should be aware. That means what is the size of the team you handled? You should be mentioning. That's why I have mentioned here also the point. You should be mentioning the sprint cadence first and the team size if it is not discussed earlier. You should mention that first. For example, I handled a Scrum team of 4 developers plus 2 QA. And then you should tell we follow a 2-week sprint. Then you should jump to the team-specific historical data. That means you know very well what velocity your team will normally progress, right? So that you should be telling. For example, my team used to deliver 40 story points on an average per sprint. The reason why I'm telling to have the sprint cadence and the team size mentioned is then only the interviewer will be able to relate your actual work, whatever you're doing. So if you're not giving that clarity, it may again give a chance for a follow-up question on the same. So better you can include very clearly that this is the sprint cadence and this is the team size I have handled. And if you're looking for some more details, you can even folks can even refer my previous video. I have mentioned like how we are calculating the velocity of a team very clearly in one of my earlier videos. You can just have take a look whenever if you feel you need to go back and explore more about velocity. So this was also a pretty straightforward question, and I answered in this way. Next, how are you estimating stories? So this question, I was like very clear and I was very coherent with my answer that I started answering this question with estimation strategy. That means what estimation technique or strategy you used. For example, in my team, we follow planning tool. So I very clearly mentioned that first. And then I jumped to the how part. So what estimation strategy is the first answer you should be telling, and that will give a confidence to even to the interviewer that, okay, they are starting it in a good way. That can even help them give a good impression about you. Okay, so always mention the estimation strategy which you are following. It may be anything, planning poker or t-shirt facing or dot voting, anything, whatever, mention the strategy first. And then really mention when you are doing this activity. That means when you are estimating. Then I mentioned my team's way of estimating story. So normally my team, we use a planning poker technique where we use an online estimation tool So I just mentioned that website, that this is the website. So before each PBR, that means I have clearly mentioned that we will be doing estimating the user stories during our product backlog refinement meeting, or in case if needed also, we will be doing an estimation in sprint planning meeting. So for that, the tool, whatever I using, I clearly told. And as a Scrum Master, what I will ensure is before the product backlog refinement meeting, I used to create a session and then share that link to the participants of that meeting. That means the development team. I used to share the link so that they can also join that session and they can provide the estimation. So in this way, I clearly mentioned step by step how we are estimating a story. And that is how I answered this particular question. So always remember, your answer should not be too lengthy also, and be very clear about what you're answering. To the point, you can give the answer, but relate it with your project and your experience. Next question. What are the Scrum events you have? When you have each event? So this was the question. So you know very well. The answer also you know very well. So how I started is I have already mentioned the sprint cadence. So my interviewer is very well aware that I'm following a 2 weeks or 3 weeks sprint, whatever. So just I started with the sprint calendar. So sprint calendar is something day wise we used to have, right? For example, the day one we used to have sprint planning, and the day two we used to have this event. And when are you having product backlog refinement? Everything with the day number. I clearly told. That means on a very high level, not like day one to 2, 3, 4, not in a very day wise. I didn't mention. I was explaining very clearly. In the start of the first day of the sprint, we normally used to have our sprint planning, right? And in the last day of the sprint, we normally used to have our review and our sprint retrospective. Right? So I was very clear about that. And product backlog refinement, when we used to have, I added. And one more thing I also added is, as per all these 5 Scrum events happen inside sprint, right? Sprint is also a Scrum event as per the Scrum Day. Sprint is the container within which we will be having all these events, right? So that clarity also I have given, because people tend to miss that sprint is also an event. Sorry, this here it is a typo. So sprint is also an event. Here it is mentioned Scrum. Actually, sprint is also an event, right? So you should be telling that. Some interviewer will be expecting, because as per the Scrum, get the standard 5 events are sprint, sprint planning, a daily Scrum call, sprint review, sprint retrospective. And product backlog refinement, it is clearly mentioned whenever and as needed, we can have a product backlog refinement meeting. So you should be very clear. Don't miss sprint when you're explaining the Scrum events. Moving to the next question. What are the challenges you faced as a Scrum Master? See, this is also a very commonly asked question. See, you will be having a very good experience as Scrum Master, right? So from your perspective, you should select any 1 or 2 good examples. Have 2 good examples for the challenge, whatever you faced. And while explaining, you should be very clear. First, you should explain the problem statement very clearly, and then you should explain with the root cause. Explain the root cause and how it was resolved in real time in your project. So that also you should be telling. So 1 or 2 good examples is sufficient for this particular answer, but clearly the interviewer is going to look how you contributed and what is your action plan in that particular challenge. So answer very carefully and very clearly this question. And I explained with 2 examples very clearly. And in my project, there are a lot of challenges, but If you are mentioning too much challenges also, the interviewer may not feel good. So always have like just stick to 2 examples at the max. Don't go beyond that. Because day to day, like we might be having like n number of challenges from master. From delivery perspective, also you can quote a very simple example, 1 or 2. It's fine. Moving to the next. Have you worked with CI/CD pipeline? Can you explain? See, the reason for this question is this is not a very commonly asked question in a Scrum Master interview. And this may be asked from your resume for a technical Scrum Master mostly. I'm just telling like if you have applied for a technical Scrum Master, mostly these type of questions may be coming. And now the expectation is even some amount of technical knowledge also people are expecting. But this was asked explicitly from my resume because I was mentioning DevOps because I have prior experience in DevOps. So that's why this particular question was asked to me. And very clearly, I mentioned the tool names and also the CI/CD pipeline, the end-to-end flow, how I used to work. So this is basically a technical awareness question. Because based upon this answer, they are not going to evaluate you much, but whether you are aware of the technology. That is the reason for this particular question. So I explained an end-to-end along with the tool names and no follow-up questions was asked with this. Next, the interviewer moved towards safe. This is also the same reason I used to tell. I have good experience in safe earlier. So that is why this question was asked particularly to me. If you are a normal Scrum Master where you are handling a Scrum team or a Kanban team and no frameworks like safe you are using, then I don't think so you'll be getting this question. But if you are using safe, then definitely this is also one of the frequently asked question I will tell. Explain PI planning in safe. So I explained with the purpose why we are having this PI planning meeting, the participants, the duration of the PI planning meeting, the cadence of PI planning meeting. So I explained very clearly. And also PI planning meeting is normally a 2-day activity and day-wise we used to have an agenda. So I explained with that agenda very clearly like how it is happening in my project. I got one follow-up question from that and I explained very clearly this particular event. And the follow-up question was regarding the conference vote. So the purpose of, what is the purpose of conference vote? So at the end of the PA planning meeting, we used to have one particular activity called conference vote session, where everyone will be giving their commitment towards the planned goal. Okay, normally it happens in a fist of 5 method. So fist of 5 means on a scale of 5, they used to rate. For example, if the team is like very confident on the deliverables and if they're giving like full commitment, then they used to give like 5 out of 5. And if they feel like this is like a good plan, then they may give like 4. And in the same way, like it got reduced as per the confidence of the team. So this is also from a transparency point of view. This is one particular activity we used to have in PI planning meeting. And normally, sometimes even in quarterly planning, also people used to do this in other frameworks. So this follow-up question was asked. And then next question was, how do you handle dependencies? So from a normal, this is not only from a safe perspective, normal Scrum Master may also get this question for handling dependencies. So for this, you should be very clear. And I explained with the program board where we'll be able to see the dependencies and the commitment whatever team has provided. Or in your project, if you are using any other tool, it may be anything, Jira Line or anything, it may be just mention the tool name and you should explain. And then you should also explain what discussion, I explained like what discussion they used to do regarding the dependencies in PA planning meeting. And not only about dependencies, how you're tracking the dependencies also, you should be very clear. And even I explained about SOS, so Scrum of Scrums event, which I used to have in my project. So with that also, how I'm tracking, and I just took one example for one team, and then explained like how I used to handle the dependency regarding the timelines, the commitment, everything I have clearly explained. Next. Is technical knowledge needed for Scrum Master? See, this like this answer differs from person to person. Okay, but commonly, if you're asking me, I will be telling, see, a technical skill, technical knowledge, it's not a must-have for a Scrum Master, but it's a good to have. So always when you explain answer for this, you should explain this way. And also, I quoted, what is the advantage of being a technical Scrum Master? TSM technical Scrum Master, just in short, I have mentioned. What value add that is going to have in your delivery? Because being a technical Scrum Master or technical knowledge, see, if you are having a good awareness, if you're asking me if you're having a good awareness about the technology and what your team is exactly doing, that can help you to even fasten the delivery. Tomorrow, your team may be having some issues with, for example, consider like Kafka. Okay. At least you don't want to understand like all the technical terms or anything, but at least how to handle that. That can help during your impediment handling, right? So always it's good to, it's not, it's a good to have skill for a Scrum Master. It's not a must have skill for a Scrum Master. Your knowledge. So that's it from a Scrum Master point of view. These are the questions which are they asked. And as I mentioned, like around total 45 minutes it went. And followed by this, I I just assumed interviewer was good. And he started asking general questions related to why a job change and what is the notice period and whether it is negotiable. So general questions in that way. So on the whole, what I felt is, yeah, the interviewer expectation is uh, all the questions, whatever I asked, most of the questions were like he was expecting a detailed answer. So some interviewer they may be expect they may not be a very good fan of a very long answer, but here the interviewer was very patient and was listening to my answer, and I also explained in a very detailed way. But it depends upon the question. For example, a PA planning question, whatever I explained in a very detailed way because that is a straightforward question which needs good amount of explanation. So I just understood that and I answered, and hope these questions and answer was useful to you people. All the very best, folks. Thank you.